Hello and welcome to News 5's 2021 Year in Review. I'm Carla Husner, the news director. As each reporter introduces themselves, I've asked them to answer the question, how would you describe 2021 in only one word?
Dwayne Moody, I'd say it was a frightening year.
And for me, Marian Ali, it was certainly brutal.
Paul Lopez and Carla, I'd say my word is fruitful.
I'm Sani Cayetano. My singular word is tumultuous.
Whatever word you choose to describe 2021, it was certainly unprecedented. Although we can't show you every story making the headlines, we chose a few standout moments to bring it all back and help us say goodbye to 2021. Let's start with the story that sent shockwaves throughout the country, the shooting death of 14-year-old Laddie Gillett. Paul, please start us off.
Sure, Carla. As of December 15th, there were 11 minors killed in 2021. That's a shocking number. They were not all gang affiliated. Many were students with promising futures. As the story broke in Placencia of Laddie's death, News 5 spoke with the victim's family, the lone witness, and headed to court, where the man arraigned was none other than a police corporal, Kareem Martinez.
Not lie to you, Paul. Those guys had the intention of killing me, bro.
That is the voice of 19-year-old Thomas Palacio, who remains shocked after witnessing the death of his young friend, 14-year-old Laddie Gillett, on Wednesday night in Placencia Village. Thomas alleges that a gun was pointed at him too, just inches from his face. He believed that as the only witness to the incident, his life was on the line.
Nobody chased us. They ambushed us. When they said that it was three guys, it weren't three guys, but it was just me and Laddie walking, jogging home.
Thomas says at no time did the men identify themselves as police officers.
My problem with this whole thing is, if they had simply said police or security, we would stop instantly. Paul.
Yeah.
Those guys hopped out of nowhere in all black.
Wow.
Now us being young men with, phones and stuff in our pockets. Not really anything expensive, but, just like our phones and our lives. Like, yo, they're thieves. We just turn around the other way. And instantly at the turn around, Paul, a baton strikes me in the back. And about 2 seconds after, I hear a gunshot.
Thomas says he fell to the ground, and to his dismay, when he looked over to his side, Laddie Gillett was lying on the ground, fatally wounded.
Right away, the man started grab up my shirt and push me to my back and got in on my face. The man started kick on me and knock on me and just abuse, reckless abuse. Look over and see him on the ground and refuse to believe that he was the one who got hit. These people really have no heart. They were concerned about themselves more than they were about Laddie. Why would I know? Why the man get hit? Why the man gone, dog?
In the moment, Thomas feared that he was also about to lose his life at the hands of one of the officers in an attempt to cover up the incident.
What saved me was my mouth, what I said. I said, yo, our family will get concerned. Then I right round the corner and everybody would be worried. And I said that knowing that they would assume that there are others around them, meaning they can't kill me.
This is the scene outside the Belmopan Magistrate Court moments after Corporal Martinez was granted bail and exited the courtroom. A male individual who accompanied Martinez attempted to prevent our cameraman, Kenroy Michael, from capturing Martinez's image.
This morning, or just a while ago, is Mr. Martinez. Kareem Martinez was arraigned for one single count of manslaughter.
Okay. And what was the outcome of today's arraignment?
He was offered bail in the sum of $8,000 or two sureties in the sum of $4,000.
All I can say, it's not what I was expecting, we asked, we've waited. We wanted justice. Manslaughter, I just don't see it as a charge fit. His action, I don't know, as a trained, as you from a trained body, as disciplined body, I mean, and you're allowed to carry a firearm, at least you should have some level of training to know from the time you pick up a firearm and point it at somebody and you pull the trigger, you could kill this person. This is not a toy, something that would steal. You could kill them. So from the time he picked up this gun and aim out at this kid here and pull the trigger, I mean, that was intentional. Don't tell me that is not intentional.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
The chant for justice for Laddie Gillett was made symbolically across from the Supreme Court building in the Battlefield Park in Belize City on Sunday night.
I'm sending this to the DPP, whoever she or he is, I don't know. But, you know, please just upgrade the charge to murder. You know, Laddie deserves justice, just like how Mr. Allison Major deserved justice, the same way how Mr. Farid Ahmad deserved justice. And I believe Laddie's situation was totally atrocious, totally reckless, totally worthless, you know, of that officer. And then for be more about it, you get charged for manslaughter. When you then give a warning shot to this young man, you know, you just aim at this target. I know for sure they always say, give a warning shot. You know, you not aim at a 14-year-old. What a 14-year-old could do with his back turned to you.
We have to learn to stand on our grounds and walk for we talk. When we say we will do something, do it. And when time call the backup, we need to stop back up and stand for we ground. Stand on our ground. Stand for we ground and fight. Because when we fight, God fighted we. And we the fight for we rights.
While the protesters lashed out against what they feel is a quote-unquote free ticket for the accused policeman, they are clear that they are not anti-police, but simply anti-police abuse. One of the protesters, auxiliary nurse Indira Cayetano, also criticized Belizeans for not taking their fight further than the social media platform.
Belizean will always be Belizean. There will be this, you know, advocate on Facebook, but when it comes to stepping out, you can see the small amount of crowd that who wants to support and wants this brutality to end.
Another horrific shooting was that of SJC student Dwayne Gabriel. His death instilled fear in every parent. This murder was so outrageous it caused seasoned gang members to denounce the younger generation who kill indiscriminately.
My baby me innocent. My baby no know what the gang. My baby look at me, I 15 years old. 15 years old and he said, Mommy, I want to be a basketball player. He in a third farm, na SJC. Wanna be his top college.
Another teenager is dead, the 8th minor to be killed in a relentless spate of gun violence that continues to grip the country. 15-year-old Dwayne Gabriel is the latest victim of a ruthless attack inside a grocery store on Saturday evening that snuffed his young life.
My Belizean people, let's work together for a better Belize and stay safe.
His dreams of being an athlete are dashed and his killer remains on the loose. Surveillance footage of what transpired inside the store shows Gabriel standing at the counter, making a purchase when another individual approaches him from behind, takes aim with a firearm and pulls the trigger.
I wish I may say our need. I wish I may say our need. I said, baby, go buy the bread. And he humble and obedient because he in life.
Despite being rushed to the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital for emergency medical attention, Gabriel's prognosis was grim. His mother describes the scene as well as her immediate response to what she encountered.
Drag my baby. I drag my baby. Helpless body. Helplessly body, I drag. And when I drag her, I fight it and I put her in the back of the truck and I get in. And I sit down and I hold on to your pants. One spell, no breathing, and I holler at her and I say, "Paw! Breathe for me!" It do. And the policeman say, "Yes, mommy, no stop."
We never ever do that enough for we young, enough for we older guys history, right? So the younger guys then where they come now, and that make the thing difficult because then the people then when if you get hurt want always have more protection over themselves and watch over themselves, so it's harder for you to catch an individual. If you hurt an individual, if you get hurt, that's the easiest thing to do. Because the individual I never expect that you get hurt because you don't have no relationship with no kind of affiliation in nothing.
I think the individual whether they're shooting a simple shooting there with a young man, they're stupid. If they get penalized for that. Because we don't condone that. First thing, I never ever mess with a child. I 36 like what I tell you now. I try to make a picnic. I love kids. Understand me? I always have kids around me and everything. I always treat them because I love kids. I don't have no kids. I love kids. So I never condole. I never ever watch that. That the chance they leave boy, the chance they leave picnic. Understand me? And I get tired of that. I really get tired of this. That's why I beg to all the so-called gang members, they call themselves gang members, man, please lift the picnic out of this.
I don't mess up in my life. Understand me? I know that for any time. I try to get scholarship for some money. Try to make them go to school. I teach them this another way. Because we mess up. All we already have done all. After they turn now. After they came and leave picnic, man, come on. I got 3 sons. That born me. That born me.
This year is exceptional because we lost some young people. We lost Laddie Gillett. We lost Casman Gill. We lost Dwayne Gabriel. It takes me back to the years when we had lost Joshua Abraham. So it's really hurtful because we see where our young people are now victims of these crimes, and we need to do more as a police department. And as a country, as family units, we need to protect our young people more. So that perhaps has been the most challenging part of this year for me as minister, the fact that we've lost so many young, innocent people.
Arguably, the story that saw the most international press descend on Belize was the shooting death of senior police officer Henry Jamot in May, allegedly at the hands of Canadian Jasmine Harton. Everyone wondered what happened on the San Pedro Pier that night. This story had viewers following every twist and turn of the case.
He was once the coastal executive officer of the Belize Police Department, stationed here at the San Pedro Police Station on Ambergris Key. But in the wee hours of today, Superintendent Henry Jamot was fatally shot to the head while socializing in front of a beach resort south of the town.
Mr. Jamot and a female were socializing on a pier somewhere in San Pedro. This was after 12:30 a.m. thereabout, which would be during curfew time, when one single gunshot was heard. And upon investigating, police found the female on a pier, and she had what appeared to be blood on her arms and on her clothing. And inside the waters, right near the pier, police recovered the lifeless body of Mr. Jamot with one apparent gunshot wound behind the right ear.
32-year-old Jasmine Harton was arraigned in the San Pedro Magistrates Court for the charge of manslaughter by negligence for the shooting death of Superintendent Henry Jamot. The charge was levied following a directive given by the Director of Public Prosecutions this afternoon. Jasmine Harton was transferred from a holding cell in the island town of San Pedro to a dock on the lagoon side of Ambergris Key. There, she boarded a private boat under police guard and was ferried to Belize City. She arrived at a pier used primarily by fishers on Marine Parade to a waiting prison van that whisked her to the Belize Central Prison in Hattieville, where she is spending her first night behind bars.
What submissions will you be making to the judge?
It's in relation to her flight risk status, but
do you consider her a serious flight risk?
Yes, we do.
It was a very long day with long arguments, but in the end the judge felt that there was not an unacceptable risk of flight once the appropriate conditions could be put in place.
Smith, in his presentation, shared 7 points, including a checklist used to counter the Crown's submission that Harton is a flight risk.
The question of whether you grant bail or not includes a whole list of factors previous convictions, character of the person, economic ties to the country, family ties, community ties. And so basically the judge carefully went down the entire list and concluded that there was not an unacceptable risk of flight.
Today we say goodbye to the 23rd child and the youngest son of Maria Concepcion Arana Jemot and Henry Levi Leon Alexander Jemot Sr. The world heard his name, his weighty legacy, the superintendent of police, the protector, the gentle giant of a man. But to those of us who loved him and ached with his passing, we know Henry Jemot as a father, a brother, a friend, and the king.
The accused, Jasmine Harton, is still awaiting trial. Marian, would you take us in another direction now with the drug plane landings this year?
Sure, Dwayne. 2021 was a tough year for law enforcement as they lost some officers, but also had to arrest some of their own for alleged involvement in drug trafficking. The incidents began back in February when a plane crashed near Lemonal. 9 men were detained, 3 of them police officers. In November, 4 drug planes landed. Again, police officers were implicated.
Wow, okay, well, I guess that matter will be tested when it comes to court. All 9 of them were in possession of 2 bales? Or the 2 bales were in one of the fishing net or something? You didn't get the details.
But sir, what were these men doing in that area?
Yes, sir, what in the area? They were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Sir, but there's a curfew. There's a quarantine regulations in place, and there's a curfew.
Okay, prosecutor, if you are, if you hear that a plane has crashed, you would want to try and see if you could rescue somebody or try and go to the scene of a crash. There was presumably, according to something, that there was a big ball of fire and the police could smell fuel burning and so on and so forth, no? There must have been 2 pilots. I don't know if any of the 9 persons from the rural area are pilots, but the pilots, and I imagine that a lot more drugs would be in a plane that size. Those were able to get away, but they were able to get some of the drugs, no?
So if you're giving me the option to say, Minister, we can give you A, you could catch the drugs, but you not catch who land the plane or who facilitated it, or B, you also catch the drugs and you catch those individuals responsible for facilitating the plane landing, I will always choose B. As much as it is painful to see, as minister, to see that there are corrupt officers involved, it's all over the world. It might be a very difficult pill to swallow as a country, but that is how we root out the corrupt officers.
The Belize Police Department is in the throes of a public relations debacle, a situation that is not necessarily unique to law enforcement. Since the beginning of the year, several officers have been arraigned for their alleged involvement in narco-trafficking activities. Assistant Commissioner of Police Marco Vidal may not have been part of a circle of rogue cops who facilitated the landing of drug planes in Belize over the past 12 months. However, he is on administrative leave tonight for managerial shortcomings that may have enabled his men to aid and abet the movement of cocaine through the country.
While yes, there is a move to suspend, it will be based on administrative failures. The investigations so far have not unearthed anything to suggest that Mr. Vidal was involved or in cahoots with those persons. But yes, we have seen where, as the commander of operations and the person was in charge of the CAS team, that he could have done certain things to prevent what happened, and he did not. So administratively, he will be held accountable for those.
And so will a handful of policemen who stand accused of participating in drug transshipment through Belize. In retrospect, 2021 has seen a marked number of officers being placed on interdiction after being charged for their purported role in narco-trafficking.
I don't think that we have ever shied away from that. If a matter of fact, over the past few weeks, we have charged a number of police officers for trafficking large amount of drugs, just that in those cases, it was marijuana. But we know that there are police officers and members of BDF and Coast Guard who are involved in drug trafficking. And the public can see that once it is that these officers manifest themselves, we deal with them. We are not here to cover for nobody. You want to go and deal with drugs, you're caught, you will face the consequence of it no matter where you work and no matter who you are. It's simply as that.
On the contrary, it has proven seemingly difficult to stick charges on these lawmen. Many of them, including the so-called Narco 11, 4 of whom are officers attached to ACP Vidal's hand-picked strike team, are represented by a preeminent criminal lawyer. Dickie Bradley is Elmer Na's counsel.
Corporal Elmer Na was stopped in the area of the Independence Police Station, I think on the highway, returning from Punta Gorda, where there was a christening or an event, a family event, for which there are dozens of witnesses. He was with his common law wife, and his common law wife was along with her brother, who is the other police officer that I was referring to. They were stopped. This is 2 days after the plane had landed and offloaded.
With a winning streak that has seen several officers acquitted of the charges brought against them, Bradley is no slouch when it comes to defending these accused policemen. Earlier this year, back in February, Minister of Home Affairs Karim Musa spoke on the arraignment and likely conviction of several officers who were busted in the vicinity of New River near Lemonal village.
Previously, while we had our suspicions and we gathered evidence, and I'm talking under the last administration in relation to drug plane landing, it was never so clear-cut. It might be that you found an officer in a particular area and they were saying that they were fishing and they had their fishing lines to prove it and no drugs were found on them. And so it depends on a case-by-case basis. But I fully agree with you that in this particular case, we should see convictions because in this case, the drugs were found in the possession. It's very rare that you actually get a bust like that.
Fast forward to November 30th, when 6 men, including a policeman, were busted in Mountain Pine Ridge for purportedly landing a single-engine aircraft stuffed to the gills with cocaine. He, too, is represented by a well-known attorney.
I can share with you that nothing incriminating in terms of what my clients were charged with. They were charged under Section 30 of the Civil Aviation Act, that they conspired with others to land a plane. There is no evidence whatsoever in the police possession that I saw that would suggest that they were involved in the landing of any plane. Nevertheless, they were charged.
These criminal matters involving at least 12 policemen are still before the court pending an outcome. We note, however, that a tribunal has also been convened to try these cases outside of the judicial system to determine whether the accused officers will remain in the police department.
The fallout continued. In early December, Assistant Commissioner of Police Marco Vidal was suspended pending investigation, and his estranged wife, the Director of Public Prosecutions, has recused herself following the arrest of a member of her security detail.
I'd like to start with the Reporter's Choice section of the program. Back on January 29th, I covered a drug plane that crash-landed in a remote area of northern Belize. The reason why this story was chosen, particularly because it was a mile-long hike, or several miles long, and it took us the better part of 2.5 hours one way to get to the actual site of the landing. This is in a location between Lemonal and Crooked Tree. It's a far-flung area in northern Belize district. The visuals and the fact that the quantity of cocaine was also shown at the Eastern Division headquarters being trucked in, I think makes for a very visually appealing and compelling story.
So that was your most memorable for the year?
Yeah. Just behind me are the charred vestiges of a twin-engine aircraft that crash-landed overnight in this remote area of northern Belize district. Inside was a consignment of 25 bales of cocaine destined for the North American market. A law enforcement operation overnight, somewhere in the vicinity of Lemonal and Crooked Tree villages, led to the discovery of a burnt drug plane. The flight pattern of the aircraft was being monitored by the Joint Intelligence Operations Command as it entered Belizean airspace.
Around 9:50 p.m. last night, we received information through JAYAC of a plane leaving South America, and that the plane may be heading our way. Based on that information, we activated our different operations teams and deployed in different possible landing spots across the country. Sometime around 3:30 thereabout, the suspect aircraft entered our airspace and was being followed by the Mexican air asset, which gave us some information as to its whereabouts. The plane was eventually spotted in the Hillbank area by the team that was posted there. And it faded off the radar, but we had sight of it. It made 3 circles within the area, and subsequently we saw, the team that were out saw that it went down in the Lemonal area.
When the officers arrived at the scene, they soon observed a massive fire not far from where the aircraft went down.
The officers said that about 20 minutes after landing, they saw a huge flame from the area where the suspect aircraft had landed. And a few minutes later, they saw a boat in the lagoon heading west. The boat was moving at very high speed, and so we were unable to catch that boat. But minutes later, another boat was seen, a smaller vessel this time, was seen coming from the same direction where the plane was seen, where they had seen the plane went down. And the officers were able to take possession of a boat that was in the Hillbank area and went out in the lagoon, and they were able to capture the second boat.
On board the second vessel were several persons, including Special Patrol Officer Tyrell Talbert, Police Constable Byron Clare of the K9 Unit, Lance Corporal Steve Rowland, Dwight McFadden, and another individual identified as the father of PC Clare.
Inside that boat were 9 men, and a search thereof yielded 2 bales of what we believe to be cocaine. The individuals and the boat was taken to the dock, where we learnt the names of the persons to be one Tyrell Talbert, who is assigned to the Special Patrol Unit as SPU. We took possession of the content of the vessel and the individuals. They were brought here at Queen Street Police Station, where the 2 bales of suspected cocaine was weighed and amounted to somewhere around 64 kilos.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
It was a year of highs and lows for the economy. The Briceño administration proposed a 10% salary cut for public officers and teachers. The unions took to the street in the longest strike in history. Bridges were blocked. There were countrywide protests. But the efforts were ultimately unsuccessful and the cuts came.
To save Belize and to rebalance the fiscal deficit, we must reduce the public sector wage bill, among several other actions that we must take. Unfortunately, we must implement the borough wage cut and reduce the salary of those in the public service and all those that are paid by the government of Belize, either directly or indirectly.
When do we want transparency? No. When do we want good governance? No. When do we want uncock? No. Because the power of the people is greater than the people in power.
The unions descended en masse on Sugar City today, with busloads of teachers and public officers arriving from distant reaches of the country. Orange Walk is the hometown of the Prime Minister. Since he has been noticeably absent from the negotiating table, they've decided to bring the message to the source.
Our teachers are saying that the message must be sent, and today was that day for us to send that message. We are in the correct place, and so we felt that being here, that we would have been heard.
It's easily the largest show of strength since the strike began several weeks ago. On record as the longest work stoppage for teachers, the Public Service Union is also on board and has been participating in work to rule activities in support of the cause.
We are out here today. We are hoping that the numbers will encourage the government to come back around the table, because we want to solve this thing as much as they want to solve it. We don't want to continue injuring the country. We know that it is causing some damage, but this is what these actions are all about. This is the only way that the people can be heard. The law allows it, and that's the way how the law balances the power between the employer and the employee by giving us this right to industrial actions when we are not satisfied.
Instead of placards, the Nurses Association of Belize, whose membership is made up of frontline health workers, carried large brown pods that we colloquially refer to as stinking toe bukut. The symbolism is quite apparent.
Bukut has been following me throughout this process. And it just goes to show that whether red or blue, all we always end up getting is Bukut. We always get the dirty end of the deal. It's time for our people to use Bukut as a museum piece. Put it behind us. And let us get good governance. Let us get UNCAC. Let us get whistleblowers. Let us get all of these things, anti-nepotism laws. These things are available. It's just for them to go through it and adapt it. But none of them want to do it. Because if I make a law to chastise you, then when it's your turn, that same law will chastise me. So they're dragging their feet.
Notwithstanding the threat of having one's salary docked for participating in a strike beyond May 14th, government workers and teachers have decided to stand up for what they believe is fair and just. According to PSU President Gerald Henry, this type of activism is not limited to Belize.
We are all talented Belizeans here in this country, so we know when it is that we deserve better. We have to fight for it sometimes, but that's where it goes. It doesn't happen only in Belize. This is not a political movement. It is a people movement. It happens in Belize, it happens in the US, it happens across the world. So there should be no surprise. They shouldn't be attacking us as if though we are politicians. These things happen around the world.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isane Cayetano.
For the last 40 years, what we've seen is that our politicians have been married to corruption. And we're saying to them symbolistically today that we are putting corruption to death, and we want them to now come with transparency, good governance, accountability, and provide us with the enabling power to whistleblow when it is that we see corruption attempting to rear its ugly head again.
Teachers and public servants marched through the streets of Belize City, dramatizing a funeral procession.
The deceased is symbolic, corruption personified.
Today, if you notice, we have our coffin symbolizing the death. So today we hope to bury corruption, nepotism, all the negative things that are bringing our country down as we stand for good governance. We got to stand strong so that those people who are in government could hear us, hear what we're standing for. We know the 10% is out there and it's going to affect a whole lot of, in fact, almost all Belizeans, especially the poor class of society.
Without the unions, who will be there to hold the government accountable? That is the main thing. Without us, who will be there?
These processions were held in similar fashion across the country, including the city of Belmopan, Orange Walk, and Dangriga towns.
We're living in really, really difficult times, and so we had to make difficult decisions. No government in their right mind would want to be cutting salaries 6 months into their term. That even 6 years into your term, you'd want to be doing that. And truth be told, in the 40-year independence of this country, history of this country, you've never cut the salaries of public officers and teachers. This is a first. And so this was painful and uncomfortable.
But soon after, there was good news indeed, as there was a major breakthrough with the super bond. Paul, can you give us more on that?
Indeed, Carla. After a lengthy process, government settled the multi-billion-dollar external debt with bondholders. This was through a unique agreement with the Nature Conservancy that got international attention.
This process was a process of negotiation. Originally, with the previous government, they were willing to concede the full land tax waiver, and with this government, we had to renegotiate for a discounted rate rather than a full tax waiver. The other portion of that agreement primarily deals with the carbon rights, and basically, in that agreement, it is stated that basically the government is granting those carbon rights to the Belize Maya Forest Trust to be able to both repay some of the acquisition costs, as well as create some sort of, if you want to call it, well, it's an endowment. But if you want to call it, it's a fund that basically can be used for long-term management.
Legislation to this end was passed in the National Assembly on Friday. Now, TNC's acquisition of the 236 acres of land and the establishment of the Belize Maya Forest Trust is not to be confused with the funding expected to be provided to the government of Belize under the Conservancy's Blue Bond for Ocean Conservation Program. This is a second undertaking meant to restructure the government's so-called $550 million super bond.
Very different, so I want to make that distinction because I have seen that in the news there has been some confusion, and I think it's partly because the Nature Conservancy is involved in both sort of agreements or initiatives.
So, what is a blue bond and how does it work? In short, the Nature Conservancy agrees to buy over a country's sovereign debt. That country, in turn, must agree to protect at least 30% of its marine areas. Blue bonds are hailed as an audacious plan to save the world's oceans.
It's going to be more marine conservation, and it is going to be conservation beyond the reef into our exclusive economic zone.
In the case of Belize, GOB would pay 55 cents on the dollar to bondholders through funding from TNC, which translates into 45% in savings on the super bond. GOB would then repay TNC, the new bondholders, the blue bondholders, at a lower interest rate and over a longer period. But in order to finalize such an offer, the government needs 75% buy-in from the bondholders.
We hope and expect that we could reach a 75% threshold, so that then by doing that, then we could get rid of the entire super bond and then come up with what we call now the blue bonds that will be moving it from that once we do the financing and everything. But I just want to reiterate that this is the best deal that we can offer to the bondholders. It was a long process, but we are very excited about the prospects of finally putting the end of this super bond saga.
This super bond
noose no longer exists. That was cancelled on Friday when the super bond holders were paid off at a 45% discount, which means, as Julia explains, that we automatically saved $250 million or $500 million in Belize terms. So automatically our debt to GDP ratio falls by 12%. Our external debt falls by an even greater percentage, more like around 20%. So the benefits are gained already. In terms of opportunity, recall that when this administration came into government, the state of public finances, the state of the economy, there was no fiscal space. In fact, the government was borrowing $1 million a day roughly in Belize dollar terms. We're not borrowing $1 million a day, and I don't expect that we will be borrowing $1 million a day, or that is the intent, that we will not be borrowing $1 million a day for the foreseeable future. So we are in the process of improving our fiscal position.
In politics, the People's United Party swept the municipal elections, but the United Democratic Party found itself locked in a leadership struggle. Who could forget the unprecedented recall process to see Patrick Faber removed as party leader? The infighting ended with Cheyenne Barrow temporarily becoming the leader of the opposition after a vote of no confidence for party leader Faber. It didn't stay that way for long, though.
The people of Belize are amazing. Yesterday, you, the people, again went out quietly and voted in towns and cities for who you wanted. Thank you.
Patrick Faber's fate as leader of the United Democratic Party will be decided on Sunday when delegates from across the country converge on Birds Isle to participate in a recall convention. Faber, who succeeded former party leader Dean Barrow in 2020, has come under fire from within, following a leaked video which shows him charging at the mother of his 2-year-old daughter in a fit of rage. It is not the first time that the Collet area representative has been embroiled in domestic issues. This time, his colleagues in the UDP are taking swift action against him.
I thought the matter should be handled internally, and although we have made appeals after appeals for this matter to be dealt with internally, there is one in particular, but there are others who continue to try to push it in the public domain. And it is why I felt the need to make a statement publicly today.
That was on June 25th, one day after he was officially replaced as leader of the opposition by Cheyenne Barrow. He too stands accused of domestic violence, but is now leading the charge against his political leader.
We have to stop that. That is a sickness that we have in our society, but that starts at the top. We are leaders, so we should not encourage bad behavior to our benefit. We have to hold each other accountable, and again, the onus is on us as the opposition, who is vying for the trust, the restoration of trust and confidence from the public, to demonstrate at every opportunity that we are credible, we are serious, and we are committed. So when this happened, the response was critical. How are we going to respond to this? There was an apology. But the prevalent thought was, you know what? There have been at least 3 previous instances of accusations.
Indeed, Faber publicly apologized for his transgression. It seems that saying sorry, however, just won't cut it this time. In a bid to preserve the party's image, a move is being made to strip Faber of his leadership, beginning with a vote of no confidence at the parliamentary level. The nail in the coffin would be to successfully have him recalled this weekend, but Faber isn't going down without a fight.
My instruction to the rest of the party, all who will be involved in this process, will be for it to be seamless, quiet, and uncontroversial.
Should Faber be recalled as party leader, there is a specific course of action to be taken in choosing a successor. UDP Chairman Mike Perfeet explains.
The Honorable Hugo Pat, as the first deputy leader of the party, and the member for Corozal North, he would be the one to take over the interim leadership. And once he takes over that interim leadership, the UDP constitution says that within 3 months, there must be a convention for a new, so to speak, full-time party leader.
It's a critical juncture for the once powerful political organization, which now finds itself in a dizzying tailspin. So what happens should Faber be ousted from his seat as party leader?
Then delegates that have been selected and who elected me to be the leader of this party in July of last year say that Faber, we don't want you there, then Faber agrees humbly and bows out at this time. If I come back, maybe you don't know me to be any quitter, but that's who I am. And that is why the people keep on supporting me in Colette and in this party, because they know I got nowhere to go. I am thoroughbred UDP. The primary attempt comes from John Saldivar, who, of course, has sour grapes and, of course, is in a predicament where he needs to self-preserve. When I referred just now to the constitution of the party, stopping certain individuals from running, he is in that predicament. The constitution says that once you have lost 3 elections, it didn't say consecutive elections, then you have to request special permission from the National Party Council for you to run again.
So is that the core issue, that he's concerned that you won't let him run again?
Well, that is one of his issues, but it is also that, of course, he has ambitions to lead, which he can't do because the Constitution, again, is very clear on who can be leader of the party. So while he will say, I don't want to lead, it is clear that that is an agenda.
We are now being treated to the spectacle of there being 2 leaders with respect to the United Democratic Party, one being the party leader and the other being the leader of the opposition, which is a constitutional position, and which means that he's, of course, the most senior official of the party in the House, where the leader of the party leader also sits. But in that particular forum, the leader of the party is subordinate to the leader of the opposition. In the party forum, the leader of the opposition is distinctly subordinate to the party leader. It's an unsatisfactory state of affairs. And I think that for so long as it continues, it really does not comport well with our democracy.
This is the leader of the opposition and party leader Patrick Faber, today side by side with a man he has been rivals with for the better part of 2 years. But back in December of 2020, after his party's historic defeat at the polls, he gave the impression that Saldivar and other UDP members who were unsuccessful at the polls would no longer have a role to play in the party.
We tried to listen to what message the people sent on election day. They said, listen, we want a party that is vibrant, we want a party that is energized, we want to see some fresh new faces, we want greater ideas from you.
But today, all that changed. Faber says that since then, he has learned new lessons.
All I'm saying is, let us include everybody in assessing, and you may say, Juice, it is a departure from what I was saying before, but that is the truth. The more you live, the more you learn, and the longer you're in this leadership position, the more you have to learn, and I have no difficulty saying that.
After a resounding loss at the polls in November of 2020, former Belmopan era rep John Saldivar turned his time and attention to farming. In the background, he plotted with several of his UDP colleagues with the formation of the Caucus for Change against Faber's leadership. Today, Saldivar was singing a new song.
Truth be told, I examined the field. I looked at our options, and I concluded along with my colleagues that Patrick Faber is the best person to lead our party at this time.
2021 also saw the passing of the first ever Governor General of Belize, Dr. Dame Minita Gordon. Her send-off was followed by Sir Colville Young tendering his resignation as GG after 28 years as representative of the Queen in Belize. Taking up the mantle was Froila Salam, who made history as the first indigenous Mayan woman to hold such a high office in Commonwealth.
A proper send-off for Dame Minita Gordon, Belize's first Governor General and the first woman to hold such a prestigious office within the Commonwealth of Nations. She was interred at the Lordridge Cemetery at midday during a state funeral that saw all the magnificent ceremonial display afforded to someone of her distinction.
She was an educator. She loved children. I mean, she was an artist. She was almost like a Renaissance woman, that she did a little of everything. And whatever she did well. We as a nation are grateful for the work that she did for us as a country, that she stepped up to the plate at a very important time in 1981 when we were just declared an independent nation.
Today, Belize bade her farewell as family, friends, government officials and other mourners attended a service of thanksgiving in her honor at St. John's Cathedral. The Belize Defense Force was in full splendor, escorting the body draped in the country's standard, followed by a sword party made up of senior officers marching with their swords in reverse as a sign of reverence. There was also a rifle party and a cannon team, which was responsible for the 21 cannon salute during Dr. Gordon's interment. Hers is only the third funeral of its kind, complete with a flyover by the BDF Air Wing.
She was a brave woman, a strong woman, and she stood up for what is right. And I think we also have to commend the father of the nation to have picked such a stellar woman, such a wonderful woman that can be the first Governor General of Belize.
In remembering the former GG, lifelong friend Stanley Lizama spoke about experiences with her during his boyhood growing up in Belize City.
My family and the Governor General was very close friends, and I used to carry bread and bun for her at her house too, because my grandaunt used to sell bread and bun, and me and she was very close friends. Sometimes we go to the house and we also have a tea party. And when my dad was the mayor in '84, she was the Governor General, and they also invite the Queen of England. So she's very close to my family.
Lizama, a mortician by profession, had the distinct honor of preparing Dr. Gordon for her state funeral. It's an assignment that, for him, was a great privilege.
The older generation knows she well, but the youths of today, they don't know who is Dr. They don't know who is she. I feel great about myself because I also do the Father of the Land to George Kager Prize. So I feel very good to give her last farewell off.
In eulogizing her sister, Kelora Franklin touched on her many accomplishments upon being appointed Governor General in 1981.
Her awards and honors are numerous. In 1981, she was awarded a Certificate of Inclusion in the International Who's Who of Intellectuals from Cambridge, England, for outstanding achievements. In 1982, she received a citation for outstanding and meritorious contributions to the development of Belize. In 1984, she was awarded the Dame Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael's and St. George, GCMG, by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And in 1985, the Queen conferred upon her the title of Dame Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, GCVO, on the occasion of her visit to Belize.
At her final resting place this afternoon, following her burial, the Belize flag was handed over to the chief mourner, Keilora Franklin, by Governor General Sir Colville Young in appreciation of service from a grateful nation. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
Royal salute! Present!
As he arrived at the House of Culture in Belize City to officially demit office of the Governor General of Belize, Sir Colville Young was welcomed with the vice-regal salute, a musical greeting and mark of respect for the man who has served as the representative to Belize's head of state, Queen Elizabeth II, for 28 years. He was installed as Belize's second Governor General on November 17, 1993, and has been the longest-serving Governor General in the Commonwealth. Sir Colville Young served as GG under the administrations of former Prime Ministers Manuel Esquivel, Said Musa, Dean Barrow, and 6 months under Prime Minister John Briceño until he gave notice of retirement. The official farewell for his departure from the office of the Governor General was full of pomp and circumstance, led by the Belize Defence Force Band and the Guard of Honor made up of BDF soldiers, Coast Guards, and police officers, as well as representatives from the Scouts and Girl Guides of Belize. Prime Minister John Briceño, Leader of the Opposition Patrick Faber, Acting Chief Justice Michelle Arana, other government officials and members of the Diplomatic Corps were in attendance today as they honored the esteemed senior diplomat. And today, as he retired, he gave thanks as he reflected on his years of service.
In saying thanks, above all, I remember the young people of Belize. If I have initiated programs for their benefit, they have in turn enthusiastically joined in those programs, whether as scouts, guides, musicians taking part, as Dr. Villanueva said, in the annual Bandfest. The young people of Belize have been my staff of comfort to help me and encourage me every step of the way. Sometimes they have surprised me.
But his life of service to Belize began before he became the beloved and respected Governor General. During his years as an educator, Sir Colville Young was the founding president of the then University College of Belize.
I don't think he hesitated because he has a tremendous love for the country. I'd have to say he's from the kind of make that the George Prices and Philip Goulstons and so came from, right? I don't know what it was around that time, but they, country before everything else, right?
And he also loved music, a passion that forged into a mission to propel the creative arts in Belize, spanning decades of work that have helped to define and promote Creole culture.
Dr. Young has contributed to the literary arts from multiple perspectives. Among these, chiefly, has to be his contribution as an author, as a writer of plays, of short stories, of poetry, of music, composing some of the tunes that we hear every year.
I think the country lost a great musical composer and a writer when he became Governor General. I think the 28 years that he spent as Governor General, he did not produce any music, nor write any more books.
While he didn't continue to write and compose music, his involvement in the arts continued during his tenure as Governor General. It just took on another form. He will be remembered for his Music in Schools program, pushing other music like the Steel Pan and the Bandfest. And like the way his interests touch lives, like his work with the Scouts, Sir Colville Young will be remembered as a man who connected with the people.
The official ceremony to pass on the proverbial baton as the Queen's representative in the country took place at the refurbished House of Culture in Belize City. The appointment of Froilan Salam as the most senior diplomat comes on the heels of former Governor General Sir Colville Young demitting office at the end of April.
Her Excellency designate the Governor General of Belize, Ms. Froilan Salam, brings with her more than just 20 years of experience in our rich Maya history, and culture. She brings more than her master's in rural development and her anthropology degree. She brings more than the sum total of her work as an academic, her scholarly publications, and decades of experience as a community organizer, all of which makes her fully qualified for her new role.
Today's official ceremony saw the acting Chief Justice Michelle Arana, a Garifuna woman also of indigenous descent, stand side by side with Salam as the oath to office was proclaimed. In attendance were government officials as well as close friends and family, including Salam's husband, mother, and siblings. After the Belizean flag was handed over from acting GG Stuart Leslie to Salam, she was officially made the third Governor General of Belize. She was then saluted by the military. Simultaneously, Salam's spiritual journey culminated with a traditional deer dance that was included in the official ceremonies today. In her inaugural address to the nation, which was well received by viewers on social media, the new Governor General acknowledged the accomplishments of her immediate predecessor,
Sir Colville Young and Lady Young, for their unwavering commitment to Belize for nearly 3 decades of service. Their love of music created a legacy which has been recognized by so many. I want to thank the Prime Minister, Honorable John Briceño, and his cabinet for their trust in me to serve in this high office. I also want to thank the many Belizeans who have expressed their delight and support over social media and personal notes to my appointment.
With passion and commitment to perform to the best of her ability, a humble Salam says that with this new platform, she intends to meet the people and be a champion not only for Maya people, but for all citizens of Belize.
Although we were not financially wealthy, we had our values. My parents did not raise us to see ourselves as poor. We had food and shelter. I was surrounded by family, with lots of rooms to run around, as well as chores to teach me how to be responsible. These chores imbibed in me an appreciation for the benefits of hard work. While the installation of a Mopan woman as a Governor General can be seen as a symbolic milestone, it should not be seen as willfully ignoring our colonial past. Rather, it is a new chapter in Belize's evolution as a country for all and by all. I intend to carry out the constitutional role of this office with the required diligence. It is also my hope that time will permit me to carry out more than my constitutional duties. This is an institution with its own culture. However, like all institutions, it is inhabited by people. Since my appointment was announced, I have had many requests made of me, from building bridges and roads to amplifying the voices of the people. I intend to fully build metaphorical bridges in this country, uniting all of us in the rural areas and the towns. I will use my interest in strengthening local communities to build a nation that can overcome challenges.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Yeah, Dwayne, what I really loved about that story, the day that we were streaming Freda Salam's installation, was I was watching the comments. And people in Belize, people outside Belize, everybody was just waving the Belizean flag, saying how proud they were. It was this really kind of patriotic moment. Yeah. And a subset of that was all the Maya pride that was coming out, that people were posting. It was really, I got a little teary-eyed.
You know, they had a portion of the installation that was a deer dance ceremony that was done, yes, and really it's something that's so traditional for the Maya people, and it was included in the official ceremonies. I think that just hones in on who she was, or who she is as a person, you know. And so I think that was really, really, really a sight, something that everyone wanted to see. And really this just segues to my choice of a story that I did this year that I feel close to. And it comes from that same installation. You know, there was a reception after Gigi Froilah Salam was installed, and Sean Quillen, Chef Sean Quillen, was responsible for the food that was served. And we just decided, let's just run there and get something quick.
Because it wasn't part of the assignment.
And that story got big hits online on our social media platform.
Yeah. People loved it. People loved it.
It was a feast fit for a queen. Well, not the queen, but the queen's representative and new Governor General of Belize, Froilah Salam. So to give homage to Salam's cultural heritage, Chef Sean Quillen headed to southern Belize to get the inspiration for the 11 uniquely made and plated dishes that were served today.
I went on a culinary journey for the last 7 days. I've been sourcing things way down. I almost got into Guatemala through Jalacte. I traveled from, I made white lime on the Hummingbird Highway. I got Obel, I got Hute, I got, we're making lancha, which I have a list of things. I get fish from Hopkins straight from the 6:30 in the morning. We have an extensive 10 course here. As a matter of fact, it's 11 courses because we have the pinole. But if you want to hear, it's authentic from her. I sex it up.
Chef Sean is known to travel the country, experiencing the rich cultures of Belize and creating authentic cuisine with an international twist. It is documented on his social media platforms. But for this event, he collaborated with Claudia Saki, a Maya Mopan woman from Maya Center in the south.
Whenever we have an event, the culture will dictate what I cook. Today is a special occasion. Miss Froilah Salam happens to be a Mopan Maya.
I get it from the village. I kill it, I clean it, local chicken, the ground pepper, I did it, and the coffee, everything. And the sweet tortilla, the chukwa he's talking about, I get it from the farm, shell it, cook it, make it into the little biscuit. That's right. Then the ubel, he used for the fish you get in Hopkins. That's what I did.
Pinole.
Oh, the pinole.
Chocolate.
The pinole, I had to roast it. After I roast it, I cool it down for 4 hours. Then we grind it. And they roast the cocoa, the same thing, the black pepper and the other spices I use in there, and then.
How long this process take?
It takes like a week.
From a deconstructed tamales with turkey, cheese, and roasted veggies to an atole and a dessert version of a garnachas or tostadas that uses sweet corn, a chocolate ganache, mint, and flower petals. Chef Sean and his team's Maya-inspired cuisine was fit for royalty.
This is a hute, and a hute is a river snail. And we took a little bamboo skewer, put some corn and atole, which everybody knows atole is corn. And in Garifuna, we take cassava that needs saho. And you know, but this is a sexy shooter, and then you pop it in your mouth and everybody say, wow, but it's really what we've been eating for many years, sir. Do you see how you have anthropology of the study of what? Culture and food and people? I mean, this is almost food anthropology, and it's unofficial because I'm documented. We don't have a book to say this or that and that or this. I have to ask the lady. And then just now when I got out there, Mrs. Salam's mom sat with me and she said, this is bringing back memories because connotation is powerful. If you may live, the people that are watching this newscast that are living in the diaspora, they smell tamales leaf, they remember their childhood, right? They start to worry because, as a matter of fact, I have a tattoo called No Barcode because when we cook, we don't cook with barcodes, sir. We don't cook with things from a label. We cook from the land.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
We're nearing the end of yet another year of living in the COVID-19 pandemic. While thousands, including myself, have survived their bout with the deadly virus, almost 600 others did not. In the midst of the public health crisis, there was also a crisis in leadership at the Ministry of Health with the ousting of Dr. Marvin Manzanero, himself a COVID survivor. Let's start with the vaccination rollout, which began in March.
It was a historic moment today at the House of Culture in Belize City as the country made it one step closer to achieving herd immunity from the deadly COVID-19 pandemic. A trio of frontline healthcare workers received their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine as the government commences its rollout plan. A total of 500 frontline employees who work within COVID-19 units within public and private medical institutions will be administered the vaccine in this first bout.
We're looking first at our healthcare workers, persons over 60 years and above, and those with special conditions. That will be in our phase 1. In phase 2, we have our teachers, police officers, and we also have in our phase 2 the tourism sector. I want to make clear that with the arrival of the 100,800 vaccines, we will be able to vaccinate more persons in the different phases at an earlier time.
There were snaking lines outside the school grounds in San Pablo Village in the Orange Walk district as the institution was transformed into a vaccination center today. Hundreds of residents as well as villagers from neighboring San Jose came out to get their jab of the COVID-19 vaccine. There were 2 queues, one for those coming for a second shot and those who were there for the first time. Following a brief sensitization session for the first-timers, they go through triage and then they are vaccinated before moving to a second room to wait for 15 minutes. It was a smooth transition and the sentiment of these people is that the vaccine saves lives.
I come out because I know I get sick and I come out until right now because I'm used to a lot of job, but I have to take my time to come out and to make I get safe, not only me and to my family to ride.
This is what we were hoping for. This is what the ministry has been working on for the last 6 months, educating, encouraging people to come out and get vaccinated. And this crowd out here today shows to me that people are listening, people are getting the message, people realize the importance of being vaccinated.
Zenaida Moya, a firebrand, was taken into police custody on Saturday. The former Belize City mayor was subsequently charged with 2 counts related to offenses she purportedly committed, including hosting a gathering of more than 10 persons who are not from the same household. The charges stem from an illegal protest that is believed to have been organized by Moya, an anti-vaccine proponent.
I contracted the virus 1 month ago, and it dealt me a serious blow. Despite all the home treatment of hot teas, boiled herbs with garlic and turmeric, and fruits, I needed hospitalization 1 week into my fight with COVID. A long x-ray detected that I had developed pneumonia, a frightening situation for anyone, and even more so for someone who is hypertensive, obese, and has a history of smoking. Smoking, as we all know, damages the lungs. If you smoke, I urge you to stop, so that if you happen to catch COVID, your lungs are not already compromised to fight it off. The hospitalization involved an aggressive cocktail of medication taken both orally and intravenously or through the veins. Even that was a struggle, because the nurses had to constantly search my arms for a new vein, since the aggressive treatment, coupled with my smoking history, caused my veins to collapse after just a day of taking the IVs. It came to a point when the head nurse, Sister Casilda Bowman, had to personally come and find a new vein after all on my arms had been used and collapsed, leaving large bruise marks on my skin. She found one on top of my right foot, another pain that I'd prefer to avoid again. Aside from the physical debilitations that the disease inflicted on my body, there was also the mental struggle I had to cope with. Seeing people die right beside and across from me in the ward as they gasped for air was not a pleasant experience, and my own mind began to drift on thoughts of whether my condition would deteriorate or if I would be spared a second chance at life. I took a picture of my hospital bed to look at daily and to tell myself that I'd get up out of it and walk out, rather than allow the disease to overcome me as it did those people and so many others. I became friends with 2 other patients who were also struggling with COVID, but who, like me, did not need ventilation. We were a tiny army praying for ourselves and each other. Gospel music and each other's encouraging words were necessary when one of us, or the other, was having an especially difficult day. Our commonality with COVID in that ward keeps us connected even today. COVID also delivers another blow to our pocket after hospitalization. That is, to those of us who are lucky enough to not die. My hospital bill after 8 days in a COVID ward stands at over $7,000. Personal protective equipment, the outfits that medical professionals use, those alone cost me $3,000, and that's not half as costly as in a private setting. When I asked him about the costly hospitalization in a public setting, Prime Minister John Briceño said that the government will have to look at that issue.
We have to see how we could address that matter, honestly, because a lot of people just would not be able to pay it. And so let's not fool ourselves. The government will probably have to find a way to step in to be able to address that matter.
While the government has its own challenge addressing the cost that COVID is delivering on our healthcare system, survivors with lasting symptoms like myself struggle still with the simple things we normally take for granted. Here you see me walking and everything looks normal, doesn't it? Underneath my mask, I'm breathing through my mouth because shortness of breath is still very much an issue. This flight of stairs, just to get to the second floor at work, takes so much out of me. You're rough. As people like me with damaged lungs recover, lung therapy is necessary in order that we can climb those stairs again without being on the verge of passing out. I share my story because I want people to see what COVID survivors have to go through. I share my story because many COVID victims do not live to tell their story. Many times we endure these debilitations because people continue to be selfish. All the backyard barbecues, the birthday celebrations, and the social drinking and gathering. And I wonder if at the end of all that celebration, if it is really worth all the pain and suffering, all the expenses, and losing so many people to COVID. I looked at COVID from an entirely different perspective this year, despite all the negativity that comes with it or that surrounds it. There was one positive part of it or aspect to it that I actually stumbled upon, and I did a story just last week where I found that there were blind or visually impaired students who, unlike us, they don't have all the senses that we do, their sense of vision, they don't have it. And they actually managed throughout not only their regular years or pre-COVID years, but during this COVID pandemic to excel. They excel in what they do. And in one particular case, the student is also a teacher of music. Hats off to them, and that was my story and my choice for the story of this year, my reporter's choice. Dayan Arda is a 15-year-old sophomore of Belize High School. Born prematurely, he suffered retinopathy of prematurity, or ROP for short, soon after birth. It's an eye disease that occurs in premature babies and sometimes leads to blindness. Dayan started playing music at age 2. Now, at almost 16, he teaches the piano voluntarily in his free time.
Again, just to get you familiar, the right hand is, let me start from here, it's
His blindness does not impede his abilities, and neither has COVID.
I'm right now with my current 18-year-old blind student who I'm teaching the piano, very basic, she's doing so well.
But Dayan's mom, Tracy Arda, says the biggest challenge in these COVID times is tempering her son's reliance on his sense of touch with COVID safety measures, and in his case, stricter ones.
We had to have a long conversation over and over with him about then you won't be able to touch anyone or touch anything, and you will get more assistance than you normally do during this time. So ask questions first, ask for direction, don't touch anyone, please don't touch anyone. Don't touch your face, don't touch your eyes. It was very important that he knew that very early on.
What blindness requires of students like Dayan is prepare them better for remote learning, which is a scenario that COVID has brought about. But the Belize Council for the Visually Impaired, BCVI, has been there providing the necessary tools to learn.
As they get older, which you would have found with some of the students that you met, we introduce laptops. So we provide a laptop for them that is equipped with text-to-speech software, so they're able to learn how to browse the internet, how to type up Word documents, how to send emails. And because we started this years ago, it has, in my opinion, helped with the transition to this online learning. Having that edge, having already been introduced to laptops or to technology, I think has really helped our students. And now it's just a matter of working to transition them back into school.
12-year-old Miracle Waite is a Standard 6 student of St. John Vianney Primary School. She too has been excelling despite the restrictions that COVID has posed.
Somebody would help me log into my class because I just learned to use a screen reader, so yeah. And then for exams, when I read out the questions, I give that answer and I type it in and then I submit it.
I understand that you are an excellent student.
I guess.
How do you manage to do that?
If you have a brain, then you could do anything. You don't really need to say.
Miracle is learning to do Braille. So a lot of her notes, although the teacher teaches online, a lot of it will have to be in Braille. So she has to learn to read back her notes, just like a regular sighted child. Or a recording, because a lot of the teachers send it video as well. But in regards to her, over the years coming in first, second, the lowest, or 1 year she had extreme eye nerve pain. She came in 5th, and that was the lowest she's ever, 6th, sorry, that was the lowest she ever came in. Miracle rises above challenges.
Also rising above the challenges in these COVID times is 16-year-old Damian Ferguson, another sophomore of EP York High School. While he is doing well in his remote learning, COVID did pose one challenge for him.
I learned by just listening. Well, for maths and so it's kind of hard because maths is more of a hands-on subject, so this pandemic messed that up.
But Damien has learned to use an app that simplified the problem. The BCVI is there to help them with that.
Our job is to make sure that children who are blind or severely visually impaired are given everything that they need to be able to function independently and to succeed in school. So we provide all their canes, we provide the talking calculators, we provide their Braille books.
While the learning for these students continues remotely, their parents will have another worry when schools reopen.
For most of it, he get it, but we still see here or there where he may forget. And his dad and I were thinking about whether we should send him back to school when that became an option to go face to face. And when Belize came out with the vaccine, when it was approved for his age group, immediately, like, we have to get him on this and take the vaccine as quick as possible, because then he has a better chance, you know, and also be able to go back to school.
But until that day comes, they do what they do best from the comfort of their homes. Marian Ali for News 5.
Let's look at some of the stories that highlighted Belize's environmental conservation efforts and this year's buzzwords, sustainable development. I attended COP26 in Scotland and recorded how Belize's delegation made a strong showing. Belize even got the attention of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson after Prime Minister John Briceño called for environmental justice and criticized the industrialized nations for their environmental abuse. In less than 24 hours, it is expected that the details of the Glasgow package will be released. It will chart the way forward as agreed to through compromise by representatives from 190 plus nations represented at COP26.
I do think we will see some progress. I don't believe we will see that major change in finance. And the reason is that all the world leaders, 130 of them, were here 2 weeks ago. I cannot imagine a negotiator will say, okay, by the way, no, I will go beyond what my prime minister, my president said. Please, if they had anything important to say, they would have said it. They would not have left it for their negotiators. So obviously that is state of play, but we can begin a process to say maybe where we will be getting at the next major meeting of the major economies or so on next year.
The realities on the ground in Belize are felt by farmers where crop cycles have been disrupted by changes in weather patterns, experienced by coastline communities where lands are being washed away. It is frustrating, and PM Briceño's message was heard.
Countries like Belize, we have been doing our part. We are protecting our reserves, our land, our waters, but yet the bigger countries who have developed themselves and living a lavish lifestyle are in effect telling us we can't do what they have done before because we have to protect Mother Earth. Because of the changes in temperature, many of our islands are going to disappear. Some of them have already disappeared. We had a bird sanctuary that has completely disappeared. And the hurricanes are becoming more intense. And we could be doing decades of good work, and with one hurricane it can be destroyed.
So your message to China, to America, to the
they
EU,
need
to
to
the
do
UK?
more. They need to do more. They need to give us the funding, and they also have to be able to do their part in reducing their emissions so that we can reduce the temperature on planet Earth.
So in terms of
well, I'm sure, of course, he's also included, and he was talking about it yesterday, but I hope that talk can be translated into action.
You're absolutely right, Anushka, to highlight the feelings of people in Belize, but in vulnerable states around the world that are in the front line in the fight against climate change. And it's been very humbling to sit here and to listen over the last weeks, months, to colleagues of Mia Motley and Barbara. You heard her at the UN General Assembly say the same thing.
The Chiquibul National Park is the largest protected area in Belize, and for years, Guatemalans have been the biggest threat to this protected area. As co-manager of this protected area, the Friends for Conservation and Development has been tackling the illicit activities carried out by Guatemalans. While they haven't been able to eradicate the activities, they've been able to drastically reduce illegal logging and shate extraction, agricultural expansion, gold panning, among other illicit activities. But with the FCD's handle on the Guatemalan incursions, they're now preparing to take on a new set of threats once the Caracol Road is built.
The opening and the upgrade of the road to Caracol, certainly that is going to open up more the area that has for a long time really been more inaccessible. The Chiquibul, Natural Arch, Ceibo Chico, all of those zones. So accessibility can, of course, bring other challenges if it's really unregulated.
The Chiquibul forests account for some 7.7% of Belize's land mass. Most of it is unexplored and rich in resources, covered in thick jungles where the FCD Rangers and BDF soldiers enforce the laws. So it's safe to say that most Belizeans have never visited this site that is tucked away in western Belize. Director of FCD, Rafael Manzanero, is concerned that the multi-million-dollar Caracal Road project may bring more problems for this protected area.
You can get more people coming in, either to do even illicit actions like hunting, poaching. Visitation can bring also forest fires if they are not really properly well regulated. So in reality, there are more internal issues now that we will need now to start to think, to plan, and basically to put in interventions.
And Manzanero hopes that the government will be able to put some of those measures in place. And so to highlight the challenges and show the value of this forest, Minister Orlando Habet and CEO Kenrick Williams of the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Climate Change and Disaster Risk Reduction visited the Chiquibul this weekend. The government officials visited the nesting sites of endangered scarlet macaws along the Chaleo Lake, toured the Las Cuevas Research Station, among other activities.
Certainly, the interest of the ministry is to make sure that these lands and properties and actually our resources are managed efficiently for the larger good of the Belizean people. We can see that coming in, especially in the Pine Ridge area before we reach the Chiquibul, there's a lot of denuding of the forest, and we're losing a lot of our biodiversity. And so as a government, we need to make certain that this biodiversity is maintained.
But the balance between conservation and economic interests can become blurred, especially for a developing country whose economy has been weakened by COVID-19 and being led by a new government with no money to make good on their election promises. With the road, this area will open up. The sale of real estate in the Mountain Pine Ridge area is bound to bring tourism and other development projects in the next couple years. The FCD is worried about those possibilities and what they mean for this protected area.
We are highly concerned, of course, because it is really a thin line. Sustainable development, and then how do you really do the protection also of the key resources that one has. If we look at water resources, for example, that is very much key. Well, how much value does the country really is willing to put into that for the long haul? Here we are standing on a main key headwater for the Macal and for other sub-watersheds. So do we really want a development that is really more open ground like this, or do we want really to capture it as a true headwater? Is it going to be more the economical values in the short term, or is it really more the kind of the long term, the benefits that one would be able to accrue from these resources?
CEO Kenrick Williams says that the Sustainable Development Plan for the Chiquibul Complex will help to guide the use of these resources. The governance framework outlines all the interests and how these will be managed harmoniously. The key part of that is the agreement between the co-managers, like the FCD and the government of Belize.
We see the threats, we see the challenges that they experience daily. Just getting to location, just getting to site, you've experienced some of the difficulty. The government of Belize is a partner in co-management, and so we have to ensure that we have the requisite resources, support to our co-management partners like FCD. And so one of the key things that we have been working on at the ministry is looking at the commitment that is required in terms of the government of Belize and the support that is required to these co-management agencies. Several of them don't even have an official tenureship. They don't have a co-management agreement in place with the government. And so we are really looking at some of those frameworks, the specific agreement and the support that we can provide to entities like FCD to be able to adequately do their work.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco. There are more than 3,000 butterflies in Yashkin Butterfly House. Inside, you can find more than 8 native species, including the striking owl butterfly and the magnetic blue morpho.
What's actually amazed me is we are one of the specific special fish. The species is the blue morpho. I never thought one day that we would be able to grow those, and they are very, very beautiful. It's amazing how they start from eggs up to the pupa. Yeah.
Is it difficult to maintain them, to keep these 3,000 plus butterflies?
Well, it is. It is difficult. Yeah, we have a few also staff working with us. Without them, we will not be able to to reach where we are today. So it is a difficult task. It's very tedious, and you have to have the passion for it as well.
And that passion runs deep in the family. Javier Saki prides himself on caring for thousands of butterflies and keeping the population replenished and healthy.
I really love what I do, especially working with the butterflies. If the first thing in the morning that we do, we come inside, clean up the butterfly house. We put fresh leaves inside here for egg laying, and then we make sure that their foods are fresh, that they have enough sugar and water inside the feeders.
Yashkin Butterfly House. It's a small family-owned business. The Sakis simply wanted to bring a new attraction in their home village of Maya Center on the Southern Highway.
As a family, we decided that we want to do something unique in the St. Louis district, since it is a hub for the tourism industry. We are close to Placencia as well as Hopkins, so we came up with this idea to do butterfly farming. And it's basically just for display, since we are at the entrance of the Jaguar Reserve as well, so we have tourists coming in and going out.
That's how they came up with the idea for a butterfly farm in 2016. It was mostly trial and error because the family didn't know anything about the butterfly business. They started from scratch with just a dream.
How to actually grow butterflies? What do they, feed on? What do they? Where do they lay their eggs? We had to do all of those. We had to, go into the forest. Try get some butterflies and see how, they lay eggs. We bring them in here, and all of those that we had to do. It is a long process, but we know it's going to be something that's a challenge for us. We haven't no experience, none at all, but we know it's going to happen, so we push forward for it.
With financing, research, and hard work, they opened their doors to the public in 2019. And that's how they created Belize Pupae Supply and Yashkin Butterfly Farm, the only one of its kind in Stan Creek. For this enterprising family, it is just as much about a new experience as it is about education in conservation.
We love having visitors here, and we have been getting locals as well, and we also do educational tours for kids. So this butterfly farming is also a part of conservation, so it plays a big role in conservation. So, we do educational tour for kids, like I said, we love having children here to explain to them the life cycle so they can see for themselves. They learn it at school, but not, when they come here, they see the whole process.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
I gotta shout out some of those Belizeans that made the news in 2021 for huge achievements. I'm talking about former News 5 anchor turned professional volleyball athlete Brighton Codd, pro cyclist and city councillor Kaya Katus, and of course, Destiny Wagner, the first Belizean to win one of the biggest international pageants, Miss Earth. It was a momentous occasion inside the Mexico Sports Center this morning when his volleyball family, as well as his parents and siblings, observed in awe as Brighton Codd signed the official documents to play professional volleyball with a team from Finland.
The contract is a 2-year contract from August 1st, 2021 to the 30th of April, 2023. And this is to play with Team Purple, which also goes by La Capa in Rovaniemi, Finland. What this contract covers is, of course, one, the athlete's salary, but besides that, the contract covers accommodations, which the team will be responsible for. It covers transportation. It covers access to athletic therapists and massage and masseuse for 2 times a month. It covers meals from Monday to Friday. This is such a huge opportunity for me. It's a dream being actualized. As I always tell athletes, follow your purpose, define your purpose, follow your dreams, work hard, stay disciplined, ensure that you're inspiring others in the process.
Age that Brighton took up the sport, his chances of reaching this level is very, very slim. But Brighton is a special athlete. I always tell my athletes that you can all have the motivation, the ability, but with the right attitude, you could climb mountains. Brighton, you did it the right way. No shortcuts, no excuse. just old-fashioned hard work.
There's been a lot of opportunities open. This year we had, I don't know, at least 6 scholarships out. And I can tell you one of the recruiters came down. He came to see me. He wants to bring teams next year to Belize and coaches, because he said, you know, you see more when you actually come. The BVA on its part will do everything in its power to support Brighton through his 2-year contract in Finland.
Belize's female cycling sensation, Kaya Catus, has landed a significant achievement in her cycling career. Tariq Kano, who is himself aspiring to become the next cycling president, made the announcement.
Kaya becomes the first female and the first Belizean born to get signed to American pro cycling team Elias Sweats. I just want to let everybody know about this big accomplishment, what it means not only to her but to the country as well and the cycling community now.
Catus explained what it took for her to reach here.
It took a couple of years going back and forth every summer in hopes that, something like this would come true. Finally, amidst the COVID pandemic, myself and a couple other Belizeans had the privilege of racing this summer in Chicago at the Intelligentsia Cup. And this is where the opportunity stemmed from now.
At her side in support of the contract today was Deputy Director of the National Sports Council, Marvin Otley.
When something like this do happen, definitely as a country we have to celebrate it and embrace it as much as possible. Sometimes in sports there's just a small window, and different sports have different background in regards to your age and that kind of stuff. And her window appears now, and it's only best that she tried to get in.
Before now, Catus had been raising funds to sponsor younger female cyclists to ride their own races. Now she hopes this new arrangement will complement her office as Councillor for Youth and Sports.
I wouldn't say that it impacts my work as a councillor. I would say it enhances it because of the new opportunities that I will be able to bring to more youths of the city, and not only the city, and by extension the entire country. In particular, youths who are interested in cycling. My portfolio, my biggest portfolio as a council is youth and sport, and I will definitely be making sure that that is fulfilled to my utmost best.
And if you're thinking that you'll be seeing less of Kaya in Belize, she says it's just the opposite. She'll be right here carrying out her councillor duties.
These races are 60 to 70 minutes long. They race by time, they race on a set course. It's not here in Belize where you ride all the way out to Cayo and come back. It's not a 5-6 hour race. So training for races of shorter distance will definitely fit right within my schedule.
As she pedals onto her professional cycling career, Catus hopes this accomplishment encourages younger athletes to pursue their goals.
For years, as athletes, we have been told that sport is just a hobby and it's just something that you should do in your spare time. Get a real job. But today I am grateful to say that sport may no longer be a hobby of mine.
You are now crowned Miss Earth 2021! You are it! Congratulations, Belize! You are the Miss Earth of 2021!
Oh my God, I feel a bunch of emotions right now. Oh my God.
Let us sink in for a while, and when you're ready, only when you're ready, share us how you're feeling inside there, Belize. You took home the crown.
My country has never placed at Miss Earth before, nor have we ever had an international crown. So right now, this is what we needed, and I'm happy to have represented such a gorgeous country. I'm overwhelmed right now with emotions. I don't even, the words and the gratitude, it's very hard to express. But I am thankful, and I'm thankful for the Miss Earth organization, and thankful for my team as well.
It is indeed an honor for us to have the privilege of having such an ambassador for our environment, for what the beauty of our environment represents not only to Belize but internationally. And for the Ministry of Blue Economy and for the Ministry of Tourism, we truly acknowledge your presence here with us and thank you for granting us this opportunity to welcome you home.
With Destiny Wagner's representation, Belize has now joined the ranks of 20 countries such as Puerto Rico, Brazil, United States, Canada, Denmark, Philippines, and Ecuador in conquering an esteemed and pertinent crown, Miss Earth.
It certainly was not my intention to become a legend or make history at all. I just knew that Belize is a very tough crowd to please, and I did not want to get embarrassed on Facebook or bullied. But aside from that, everyone here has been thanking me, but I have to thank every single one of you and Belize in general, because without Belize, I would not be here today. I am thankful for each and every one of you to have gotten your support and to celebrate a win of this magnitude with you all. The win didn't feel right until I came to Belize and got off that airplane to be back on my native soil. That is when all the emotions started to come in. But I will say before I leave here today, if we can all take a vow, not only in our heads, but in our hearts, that we will advocate and protect our natural resources here in Belize, but as well as our youth and our international ambassadors.
We are so glad from the city, from the Belize city, my councillors, the entire residents of the city want to confer upon you the greatest honor, and that is this lovely key to the city.
Paul, would you go ahead and tell us your reporter's choice for the year?
Yeah, so I selected this story perhaps because it was one of my more enjoyable experiences, and this is of course when we made that site visit to the wet concrete while it was still above the surface. That was on September 13th of this year, 2 days after my birthday in fact. But I remember the journey so well when we took off from the Old Belize port. The seas were so rough and so choppy. That was perhaps one of the worst experiences I had on sea. I believe Daryl, our cameraman, one of our cameraman and editors here, was there with me on that trip, and it was just a choppy day. I decided, why not to end off the life of this ship with a bang, to walk the planks or jump the ship. And so that's when I put on some clothing that I had already gone prepared to take a swim into the sea, as I love water, I love the sea. And so I jumped off the ship, and that shot alone seemed to have been something that viewers loved and enjoyed and commented a lot about.
The WIT has gone through a process of decommissioning. Her service role will transition a third time from a World War veteran to an economic lifeline in the sugar industry. And now she will serve as a diverse intrigue for our Great Blues near our Turneffe atolls.
We are probably a week and a half away from sinking, at least the planned date. It's all weather dependent. And so that's why we thought it would be good to get the media to see the ship in live, because in presentation it's much less, you can't tell the depth and the size of the project and what we were thinking.
Once we arrived, we climbed onto the deck of the ship using a 12-rung rope ladder. Once we made it to the top, we began descending 3 flights below the stern of the ship. We were accompanied by the caretaker of this ship, who 20 years ago worked the wet concrete in the sugar industry. Arguably, no one knows the ship from bow to stern quite like Stephen Sharp.
Punishment has got me a footman, right? Because
a footman.
Yes, I think of people who want to do, I do with them, right? And if certain people want to do a certain job, they tell me I go do the job because I go do it. All I have time punishment, anyway you go punishment, I will get punishment already. I can
We then climbed back onto the deck The wet concrete had to meet several requirements before it can be sunk under the Turniff Atoll Reserve. Barrels of oils were shipped off. Asphalt was removed from the deck. Other works included several demolition to make it a safe location for diving without any impediments.
The next move from here is the towing, and so basically we'll get two barges of about 3,400 horsepower from Big Creek that will tow this to its destination and put it in position to be able to be sunk.
A little stretch and a breather after the first climb, and then we made it on to the engine room, another 3 flights down. Once the operating center of this concrete monstrosity, now stripped of its engineering glory to meet its final resting place under the ocean's bottom.
It will be certainly the largest concrete ship that is being sunk in the Caribbean. There is no other project that we know of that is being prepared at this point in time. And so we will go to the DEMA Dive Show in November. And this will be a premier product in the Caribbean and in this region. Definitely, if not the largest, it will be amongst the top 3 in the Caribbean in terms of dive destination.
Completing the entire dive could take somewhere up to 5 days. The total cost of the project, including the donation of the ship, amounts to $3 million. It's not an inexpensive venture, and neither will it be cheap to book a ticket for one of these dives.
In the Turniff Atoll Marine Reserve products, we are looking at high-end, low-impact tours, and so it will be high-priced.
I decided taking the ladder down would be a disservice to the enormity of this concrete ship and its lengthy service to the nation. So, to pay homage, days before it becomes a world-class dive site, this brave seafarer would walk the plank or jump the ship. Reporting for News 5, I am Paul Lopez.
Looking ahead to 2022, what do you think will be the stories to watch? Should we make some predictions? Border reopening was supposed to be beginning of January. We find out it's now February.
Yeah.
Schools resuming though, hopefully.
Yeah.
Again. What would be the impact of Omicron? Will the pandemic wind down? Will it drag on? Understand Belize Guatemala talks are going to be in the news next year with Belize presenting the counter memorial at the ICJ. So that's something for viewers to look out for and pay attention to. Yeah, so I think we have a lot to think about coming up.
And that's the news. I've always wanted to say that.
From the team here at News 5, thanks for watching in 2021.
And in advance for staying with us in 2022.
Remember to get your booster shots, keep your social distance, and stay safe.
2021, that's a wrap.
Happy New Year, everyone!